I'm sure most of you heard about this famous event of the transfiguration of Yeshua and of the appearance of Moses and Elijah. Generally, all Christians speak of this event, but unfortunately, because of the preconceived ideas that Moses and Elijah are alive, they focus on using this verse as a proof that they are in heaven and were able to communicate with Yeshua, instead focusing on the real purpose for this event to take place. As we always say and do, we need to let the Bible interpret itself, instead of adopting assumptions and speculations of man. Bible never contradicts itself. Scripture is consistent, and that is why it is the only place where we should look for the truth. Before reading this account about the transfiguration of Messiah and appearance of Moses and Elijah, I would like to remind you of a couple very important statements that should always be in our mind, especially when dealing with controversial verses as those that we are studying today. First and most important verse is the statement of Yeshua recorded in the book of John. No man have ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. So, if seriously taken, Messiah has a clear stance if Moses, Elijah, or anyone else is in heaven. No one is in heaven, says Yeshua. In our previous teachings, we learned that Moses actually died and was buried somewhere in the land of Moab, where no one could find him. Only angels knew where Moses was buried. And according to the book of Jude, devil wanted to expose the body of Moses, but God rebuked him. Moses was someone who had the privilege to personally speak to God, and all Israel knew this. If they would knew where his body or the grave is, they would surely make it place of worship, and this is what God wanted to prevent, since he forbids worshiping of material things. While on the other side, this always was a goal of the devil, to make people disobey God and worship material idols. This is why God rebuked Satan while he was contending with Archangel Michael about the body of Moses. This verse is commonly misunderstood and taken by Christians as apparent proof that Moses was resurrected. This verse doesn't give even a crumb of a hint that something like that happened, and actually it would be absolutely contradicting the rest of the Bible. Moses was not resurrected. It was Yeshua, the Messiah, 1500 years after, that was first to rise from the dead. Bible plainly speaks of this. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. Yeshua is the firstborn from the dead, that he might have preeminence. Again, Apostle Paul confirms this to Corinthians. But now is Messiah risen from the dead, and become the first fruit of them that slept, every man in his own order. Messiah the first fruit, afterward they that are Messiahs at his coming. Yeshua is first fruit from those that slept, first to rise from the dead. Also, this is very clearly written in the book of Acts. that Messiah should suffer and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles. Maybe the best proof that Yeshua is the first to be resurrected is the revelation of Yeshua himself, which he gave to his disciple John, who recorded it. From Yeshua, Messiah, who is the faithful witness and the first begotten of the dead and the prince of the kings of the earth. Moses is not and could not be resurrected. Yeshua is and had to be first to be resurrected. Clearly, Moses is not alive and is not in heaven. Also, if you watched our previous teachings, we learned that Prophet Elijah is not in heaven. The second book of Kings tells us that the Spirit of God relocated Elijah when he was separated from Elisha by the chariot and horses of fire. Bible teaches that he was not taken to heaven, but to some other location where no one could find him. Scripture also tells us that Elijah, numbers of years after he was relocated, wrote a letter to an evil king of Judah, Jehoram. This letter clearly proves that he was still somewhere around, even though no one could find him. Clearly, Elijah still lived in the land of Israel after the whirlwind ride. Of course, he eventually died, as everyone else does. Apostle Paul says, "It is appointed unto men once to die." Also, King David said clearly that everyone dies. "What a man is he that lives, and shall not see death? Shall he deliver his soul from the hand of the grave?" David did not exempt Elijah. No, he knew that everyone dies, same as Paul knew. Also, Yeshua himself affirmed that Prophet Elijah is dead while having the debate with Jews. Notice how Apostle John recorded this. "Then said the Jews unto him, Abraham is dead, and the prophets, and you say, If a man keep my saying, he shall never taste of death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, which is dead, and the prophets are dead, whom you make yourself?" Obviously, Bible clearly teaches that all the prophets and all the patriarchs of faith are dead. Apostle Paul said the same thing to Hebrews. They did not go to be with God. Paul says, "And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect." So now, with having in mind that everyone is dead, and as Yeshua said, no one ascended to heaven, let's read this event that we want to study today. It is recorded in 3 of the Gospel accounts: Matthew chapter 17, Mark chapter 9, and Luke also chapter 9. Please read all of them for yourselves, since I will present and read only Matthew's account. Bible says, "And after 6 days, Yeshua takes Peter, James, and John his brother, and brings them up into an high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said unto Yeshua, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you will, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he yet spoke, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice of the cloud, which says, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear you him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and were sore afraid. And Yeshua came and touched them, and said, Arise, and be not afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man, Yeshua only. And as they came down from the mountain, Yeshua charged them, saying, Tell the vision to no man, until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. A bit longer text, but we will pinpoint important details here. Even though Bible already proved to us that Moses and Elijah are not alive and are not in heaven, Christians use this event as a proof for their false belief that Moses and Elijah, and generally all of the saved, are alive and do go to heaven. So let's put aside traditional interpretations and learn what is actually the purpose of this event to take place. First, we need to realize that it clearly says at the conclusion of this event in verse 9, Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. So Yeshua confirms it was a vision. What this means? Vision is a dream-like experience. It is happening in the mind of the person having a vision. Even if people and circumstances in a vision can be real, it is not reality, but only a vision. While reading the Bible, we see many examples of different people having visions. Some examples will make it easier for us to understand. For example, in Epistle to Corinthians, Paul wrote that he was caught up to the third heaven. He was not actually physically brought to the third heaven, but in vision, in his mind, he was there. Also, if you remember in the book of Acts, we have an example of Apostle Peter on the rooftop of his house praying, and scripture says, falling into a trance when he saw an open heavens wherefrom a great sheet full of animals descending to the earth. He was also told 3 times to kill and eat. It would be absurd to conclude that animals were flying over Peter's house, right? None of us would conclude this. Verse 17 says that Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean. And also in verse 19, that he was still thinking about this vision. So vision was in Peter's mind happening, none in reality. Also, for example, we have maybe the best example of visions in the book of Revelation. Apostle John was shown in visions things that will happen in the future. So John, in his mind, saw things that will take place only at the time of great tribulation. Just remember the description of wars and persecutions of people, or supernatural disasters happening on earth. All those were not real-time events. Those were visions about the things that will only occur in the future at the appointed time. Same thing as presented visions were shown to apostles. Also, in this case, at the mountain, Peter, James, and John were seeing only a vision, not reality. Verse 3 in this account very clearly says that this vision was meant for them, apostles. Notice, and behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah talking with him. So, in their vision, it appeared that Moses and Elijah spoke to Yeshua. This is why it's very important to take this account as a vision for apostles. Otherwise, Yeshua is breaking the Torah, the commandment that says, a man also or a woman who is a medium or that is a necromancer shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones, their blood shall be upon them. Yeshua is not breaking the law. Yeshua is not a medium who is actually speaking to the dead people. It only appears like that in a vision. If he really spoke to the dead, he would have disqualified himself of being the Messiah at all. Also, Yeshua had no reason to speak to Moses or Elijah, because usually, while they were alive, it was Yeshua, the Son of God, who was commanding and leading them in their missions, not opposite. Son of God needs no advice from prophets. It is prophets that receive messages from him. Grasp this. Appearance of Moses and Elijah in this vision has nothing to do with them being alive or in heaven, as Christians are trying to twist them. The main purpose of them appearing is not for Yeshua's sake. It is for the sake of Peter, James, and John. This is what verse 3 says. So we ask, what is it that Peter, James, and John needed to see and understand? Again, the same verse 9 that concludes the story, gives us an answer. Let's read it one more time. Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. So we explained the first part of this statement, that this was a vision. But now let's explain the main part that reveals the true purpose of this event. Yeshua said, until the Son of Man be risen from the dead. So the real reason for this event to happen is for apostles, Peter, James, and John, to have a proof that Yeshua truly is the Messiah, the Son of Man, how Prophet Daniel was referring to him when saw him in the vision of his own recorded in the book of Daniel chapter 7. So how this event proves that Yeshua truly is the Messiah, the Son of Man, and the Son of God. Let's go step by step. Please, notice how this story begins. And after 6 days, Yeshua takes Peter, James, and John, his brother, and brings them up into a high mountain apart. It is not coincidence that while writing about this event, Apostle mentions this period of time saying after 6 days. And also, it is not coincidence that only those 3 apostles, Peter, James, and his brother John, were taken with him up into high mountain. So, what is the context? What this meant to apostles? 6 days earlier, while in Caesarea Philippi, where, by the way, is Mount Tabor, traditionally believed that this is the location of where the event of transfiguration happened, Yeshua feeds the hungry multitude, multiplies the loaves and fishes, but also Yeshua asked his disciples, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" So Messiah asked apostles what people think who he is. And apostles said that some think that he is John the Baptist. Some think he is Elijah. Others think Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. And then Messiah asked apostles, "But whom you say that I am?" So at the time, still called Simon answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." So Yeshua tells him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto you, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto you, that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." So Yeshua says to Simon, "You are," in Aramaic, Kepha, and in Greek, Petros. That's why we call him Peter, which means the rock, and says that on this rock I will build my church. It's like Peter is appointed to be the priest, the leader. So the point is that 6 days before the event on the Mount of Transfiguration, apostles are asked who they think Yeshua actually is. It was a question of his messiahship. It is important to notice the fact that Matthew records that the transfiguration on the mount is happening 6 days after this discussion. Why? Pay attention. The word for transfiguration in Greek is metamorphosis. This is where the word metamorphosis comes from and means transfiguration, transformation, or a radical change. So Yeshua, on this high mount, in front of the apostles who see this in vision, becomes radically changed, transfigured into his divine glory. So the first thing that comes to mind for a Jewish person seeing this is when Daniel the prophet saw also in vision and wrote about the Son of Man receiving glory in fullness from his Father. And not just that, but grasp this, even more familiar event for the Jewish person to remember is the event that happened on the high hill, on the Mount of Horeb, or Mount Sinai in the days of Moses. Notice what happened there. "And the glory of Yehovah abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud." So Peter, James, and John, when seeing in vision the transfiguration of Yeshua on this high hill, in their mind they undoubtedly made a parallel with the event that occurred on Mount Sinai, where God, after 6 days, also showed his glory to Moses. So when Matthew recorded after 6 days, it was not accidentally, but God inspired him to write it, that this parallel with the event on the Mount Sinai is even more obvious. Also, as before Moses brought Israelites to the Mount Sinai and he fed them miraculously with manna, same Yeshua, before bringing apostles to this high hill, miraculously fed 5,000 people. Now, pay attention about the other thing that we said it was not coincidence. As on this high hill, Yeshua brought only Peter, James, and his brother John, notice that also Moses on the Mount Sinai, as God told him, brought Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. Even more amazingly is that Aaron, same as Peter, was the priest and leader. But also as James and John were brothers, also Nadab and Abihu were brothers. Stunning, you know? This is how apostles Peter, James, and John could recognize that two persons that appeared in their vision were actually Moses and Elijah. Otherwise, how would they know it's them? It was Moses that experienced exactly the same thing on Mount Sinai as they are experiencing now on this high hill. And also, Elijah was the only person that more than 500 years after Moses was sent by God and abode in the cave on the same mount, Horeb or Sinai. This is the main reason why exactly those two persons appeared to apostles. Apostles are about to meet God as Moses and Elijah did. They could have connected their own vision with the experience of Moses and of Elijah. Notice next parallel. When Yeshua and apostles came up on the high hill, verse says, Yeshua was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. Again, in the book of Exodus, we read also that when Moses came down from the mountain, the skin of his face was shining from abiding in the presence of God. Of course, Yeshua is greater than Moses. That is why his face shines like the sun, and even his raiment was white as light. It is important to notice that when Moses went up on the mount, it says that the glory of God came down on the mountain like devouring fire in the cloud. We know that God in the desert showed his presence in the pillar of fire during the night and the pillar of a cloud during the day. God tabernacles among people. In Hebrew they call it Shekinah, showing the presence of God. Same thing happened to Peter, James, and John on the high hill. Bible says, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. This was the greatest proof for apostles that Yeshua is truly the Messiah, the Son of God. They realized that they are in the presence of God. That is why they felt on their face. As Jews, they knew exactly that this is the way God in his glory reveals his presence in the cloud. Again, as with Moses, when God spoke to him from the cloud, also here God from the cloud speaks. To who God speaks? To apostles, because vision is given to apostles for apostles' sake, that they have unbeatable proof. Yeshua brought disciples to the top of this high hill to encounter God and to have a final proof about his divine sonship. There is another parallel of this event with what happened on Mount Sinai. When Moses went down from the mount, I'm sure you all know what waited for him. Israelites have turned aside, became corrupted, faithless, and perverse. Also now, Matthew records that even after this miraculous event on the high hill, apostles, because of their unbelief, could not cure the lunatic that was brought unto them. When apostles asked Yeshua why they couldn't heal him, he answered, "O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Because of your unbelief." Amazingly, this event of the transfiguration on the high hill is literally a copy of the event on the Mount Sinai. Remember that God said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." 6 days before Yeshua asked apostles, "Whom you think I am?" Peter confessed, "You are the Son of the living God." This is what God, Father himself, now confirms, that there is no doubt about who Yeshua is. And God commands disciples to listen to him. So it is not about Moses and Elijah being alive or in heaven as Christians make this story about. The vision is not given that they believe that Moses and Elijah are alive. No, vision is for the sake of disciples that they believe and listen to Messiah. God said, "Listen to him." Moses and Elijah only appeared in their vision as approval that Torah, the law, whose representative is Moses, and also the prophets, whom Elijah represents, confirmed that Yeshua truly is the Messiah. When voice of God from the cloud said, "Listen to him," this also reminded apostles of the words of Moses when he said to Israelites, "Yehovah your God will raise up unto you a prophet from the midst of you, of your brethren like me, and to him you shall hearken." Apostles also had to remember words of God written in the book of Psalm. "I have set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. You are my son." It was the same voice that after the Spirit of God came upon Yeshua after he got immersed, that said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Yeshua said that he expounded to disciples all the scripture which were written in the Torah of Moses and in all the books of the prophets concerning himself. So finally, the law and the prophets, which were represented by appearance of Moses and Elijah in the vision, confirmed Yeshua's divine identity. But also God confirmed that Yeshua is the Son of God, the one who is above the laws and prophets, whom disciples and us need to listen. Our prayer is that the truth of the Bible and the Spirit of God finds a way to your heart and mind, that you may be set free from all the traditions of men. May Yehovah bless you all.